Hello and welcome to Film du Siècle, the film and media channel focused on all things 90s and 2000s. This week, Seb and Olly will be discussing Sisterhood of the Travelling Pants.
Hello and welcome back to Film du Siècle, the film discussion channel where we talk about everything 90s to 2010. I'm here with my colleague Olly. My name's Seb.
I'm Olly, how are we doing?
Yeah, we're diddly doing very well there, Olly.
Oakley dokley.
I don't know why I talk like that, I never do. We're here to watch a movie that neither of us have actually seen before, so this is a first for this channel.
Yeah, I think we should do this more often, to be fair.
I agree, and I think we'll be seeing more of that in the coming months. And that is The Sisterhood of the Travelling Pants.
I've heard it referenced here or there.
Carry on.
Oh, right. I couldn't tell whether you were cutting out or
I thought you
That
just
was
got
weird.
bored of your own sentence halfway through.
I do that.
You do.
Yeah. No. I have heard it referenced here or there, but I know nothing about it. From context, I think it's about a group of friends who share a pair of pants.
Yeah.
Or send it to people around the world or something.
What, like some sort of insane stalker?
No, like, these pants have a history and have a lot of miles on them. Seems to be the central premise.
So they're
here.
well-worn pants.
And yeah. And that's my conjecture based on the little I've seen referenced of this movie.
From what I've heard, it's some kind of coming-of-age movie.
Right.
You know, like a teenage movie sort of thing, based around travelling pants. But the first I heard of it was actually a couple of months ago when we were reviewing Dunstan Checks In, because I noted that it was the most popular movie that the director of Dunstan Checks In directed. And I thought, well, that's a bit of a silly name for a movie. But there's some context here. The word pants in Britain is often used to refer to underwear.
Yeah.
So when I saw The Sisterhood of the Travelling Pants, I imagined something like Thunderpants or something like that. Some sort of ridiculous film.
No, I've come to basically assume the American meaning of the term pants when I see the word in media.
Yeah, like, I don't know, if you're not wearing pants here, then you're going commando. If you're not wearing pants in America, you know, you ought to put on some trousers.
Yeah.
Basically. Do you know what? Yeah. We've spent the last 2 minutes talking about pants, and somehow that doesn't feel appropriate.
Maybe a little bit.
Yeah, well, this is a small budget movie, 25 million, and it made 42 million back. So it was finally, Ken Kwapis from Dunstan Checks In gets the success he deserves. And I'm happy for him, honestly. That was an underrated movie. This seems like it's got a bit of a cult following. Our mutual friend, Pete, gives it a very high rating. He says he really likes this movie and that we should watch it.
Yeah, and
he's a man of good tastes, I think it's fair to say.
I actually don't really know enough about Pete's tastes to confirm that assessment.
Well, he generally likes what we like, and that's what we like, people who almost always agree with us. It makes us feel good.
Yeah.
It's got a bit of a poppy soundtrack by the looks of it. I note that a song by Natasha Bedingfield's in there. We've got music from the Faders. We've got music from Katy Perry and Haim, who I always assumed was some sort of heavy metal band, but apparently it's just 3 girls with guitars, which, you know, is my jam. I'm not familiar with that band myself. I don't know, the name seems to lend itself to, like, heavy metal or new metal.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
I imagine something very new metal-y with, like, lots of piercings and headbanging.
What,
Haim! Like that.
I think you're thinking of Rammstein.
Yes! Haim! It's just girls. It's not like that at all. Well, I'm glad this movie was successful. Apparently it was one of those VHS DVD hits.
Yeah. Like Scott Pilgrim.
Yeah, like Scott Pilgrim, which is another movie that astounds me that it did terribly at the cinema, although it was terribly advertised. I remember speaking to a few people about this and saying they weren't sold by the trailer. They didn't know what it would be about going in.
To be fair, I remember seeing a couple of trailers back when, and I wouldn't have gone to see it based on those. Well, clearly, because I didn't.
No. Neither did I. I don't know anyone who did, but I know people who have watched it since and thought it was a really good movie.
Yeah.
But yes, Sisterhood of the Travelling Pants. Let us delve into these pants and, I don't know, wear out this movie.
Yeah, let's watch it.
Yes, that's a far better thing to say than all the bollocks I said. Let's do it.
We will see you after the credits roll.
Okay. Alright.
Right, okay.
Well...
Was alright, that.
Yeah, I was just about to ask, did you enjoy the movie?
Eventually, yes.
Yeah, it was a slow burner. I mean, I must admit, when we started watching this, it took me about 20 minutes to get into it.
Well, for me, it was about the first 40 to an hour. That was the wall for me, and once I was through that, it's like, okay, I'm invested now.
Yeah, it was a slow one to get invested in. Well, the first minute or two grabbed my attention because it did two things that we've talked about before. It did the whole, we see the pants being created. They do that.
Yeah.
So it's a bit like Charlie and the Chocolate Factory and other movies we've talked about. And also they have the narration at the beginning about the creation of the pants. It was very Lord of the Rings.
Okay, it was a bit Lord of the Rings, but not...
The pants were gifted to the four girls, which had magical properties. But all of them were deceived, for there was one pair of pants that was created to rule all others.
That would be a very odd film.
That's what it... Well, there's two sequels to this. There's Sisterhood of the Travelling Pants 2, which was made 3 years later, and there's Sisterhood of the Travelling Pants 3, which is in production at the moment, notwithstanding COVID-19, obviously.
Yeah, that's interesting.
I don't know.
This is not my type of film, really. It's good to get out of your comfort zone, so I'm glad I saw it, especially since I did eventually enjoy it. But, good an example of what it's trying to be, though it is, I'd say it's not really for me.
No,
It's obviously not for me. It's a... Well, you know, it's a rom-com, I guess, about 4 young girls and a pair of pants. But the fact that I did eventually get invested and enjoy this is a good sign.
Yeah.
I especially like... one major criticism I might have is that not all of the stories in this movie are created equal.
No. I agree.
The best story for me is the one about what's-her-name with the little girl Bailey who has, well, it's later revealed has leukemia. And, you know, she's making this movie where Bailey can't help but interject herself, and that eventually becomes the point of the movie, and the whole, you know, the dragon's lair seed that's planted and it comes back, and she makes friends with the guy, eventually it's implied. That was the best story in this movie for me, and it was the one that got me the most.
Yeah.
I will admit that when the little girl says, the pants have already worked their magic, they brought me to you, yeah, it got me a bit.
It got me as well, and I wasn't expecting it to. I thought... I was bracing myself for them to do something really corny, like make the pants heal her, and I'm so glad they didn't go with that. They could have easily have given us a unrealistically happy ending when you've established that the pants are magic.
The pants
I was so worried they were going to go down that route, and no, they were quite brave about it. They didn't shy away from what happens, because obviously, to be realistic, when you do have leukemia, you're probably not surviving it.
And if you are, like, it won't be because you wore a pair of pants.
No, please do not consider magical underwear a form of health healing.
Magical clothes of any sort. Except perhaps rings.
Yeah, if you've got something like that, then, yeah, bling yourself out and you'll be okay.
Yeah.
I actually ended up liking all of the plots of this movie to different degrees, and I didn't think I would. Yeah, eventually. They all grew.
Yeah, they all got good eventually, I think. But, the one I had the most trouble with was the one in Greece, with the whole Romeo and Juliet thing that was going on. It's like, I just wasn't into it.
It was fine. It was the most predictable of all of them. Yeah. I thought it was alright.
And predictable isn't necessarily bad. Like, if something's well done, it doesn't matter what you see coming. Particularly as you become more genre savvy.
Yeah, there was...
But-
I don't think that plot was ever meant to be particularly groundbreaking.
No.
It was nice to see.
I did the second story for me, if we're going to order them in order of how good I thought they were, was the new family subplot with, I think her name was Carmen. I don't remember all their
It was
names.
Carmen. Funnily enough, she was the only character's name I could remember until towards the end.
And, well, yeah, it is mentioned more, I think.
Yeah, and she's got a very distinctive name. She's played by, what is her name? America Ferrera, who plays Ugly Betty. And that's a show I never understood, because to me, she wasn't really ugly. I don't know why they called the show that, and everyone was like, oh, isn't she ugly? And no, not really.
I never saw the show, so
But you've seen, but she is plastered all over the promotional material for that show, which was a heavily promoted show around 2005 or so. So you know what she looks like.
Yeah. Well, if that's the point of the show, which I don't know it is, I guess that's supposed to be TV ugly?
Yeah, I mean, the show's... I think it's a deeper show than that. It's not just a whole big joke at the character's expense.
Well, that's what the show was sold on, because I remember
Yeah.
the promotional material.
I mean, it's the sort of ugly where they're like, give you a pair of glasses and some braces, there, you're ugly now. That's not enough to make someone ugly. I mean, maybe she gave her a horrific deformity, then Ugly Betty would have been a better show. I don't know if her face had fallen off or something.
Do you know what this reminds me of?
What?
This conversation we're having? Those memes I like where they go, this thing happening, and they reference the title of the film, and they go, I don't know, I haven't watched the show. Like,
Yeah.
there was one I saw yesterday about a bunch of umbrellas on a beach, and it was the umbrellas going to the academy. I don't know, I've never watched the show. That's what this conversation is reminding me of right now.
It's like when they take like someone who's a very well-known supermodel and they put on glasses and say, oh, isn't she a nerd now? And no, not really. But yeah, that was the most interesting character to me. That's the character I probably liked the most.
What, Carmen?
Yeah.
Yeah. The thing that struck me about that one the most, I mean, firstly, Bradley Whitford is in it, and if you remember our Bicentennial Man video, which... Yes! Went live yesterday at time of recording, but by the time you hear this, it'll be like a month and a half later.
We've talked about this.
Bradley Whitford always plays a dick.
He does!
And I said in the Bicentennial Man video, it's like, oh, you look like you're good at presenting yourself as fundamentally unlikable. He's not quite like that here, although he has his moments.
Well, every movie he's in, he's a complete arsehole, because the one that comes to mind is Billy Madison, where he plays the villain of that movie, and he's just really sneaky and manipulative and scheming. And then when I saw the dad at the airport, was it the airport? Or the bus station, the depot, I don't know what it is, but he's waiting for Carmen, and I thought, wait a minute, that's, I almost said Bradley Walsh then, that's, what's the guy's name? Bradley Whitford. Yeah, that's Bradley Whitford.
I keep wanting to call him Peter McNichol because you compared them.
They are very similar, and I didn't realise that until this movie. They're like good and evil twins.
Yeah, you said that Bradley Whitford is evil Peter McNichol.
He is, basically, because when he's the friendly dad in this one, he is basically just Peter McNichol from Mr. Bean. But Bradley Whitford, I said, that's Bradley Whitford. And you were like, no, it can't be. And I think you were like that because he was playing somebody who we're meant to like, at least initially.
Yeah.
Because he's a dad. They've got a good relationship at the beginning, the dad and the daughter. He's obviously making some kind of effort for her. And you think...
I'll be honest, I was struggling to stay focused through this one, but one part that did get me was the bit shortly before she throws the rock. Not
Dwayne Johnson, no.
Although that would be funny.
Yeah.
She arrives at home from the taxi and she says, they're probably out looking for me, and they're not, they're just sitting down to dinner like nothing's happened.
Yeah.
It's like, you can't really blame her for having that reaction when, that was a dick move on the part of her dad, Bradley Whitford. I almost called him Bradley Walsh then.
It's time for the chase! The chase is on!
Except it's not, because I'm just going to pretend that my daughter didn't run away.
I know!
And it's before that point, you could write her off as just, like...
overreacting.
Yeah, and that her dad really does love her. He's just, like, busy with the wedding. It doesn't mean he doesn't care about her. But... And I think she even knew that at the time, because she said they're probably out looking for me. She assumed they would. So she did believe that her dad cared about her enough to do that. So for her to see him not having done that, and just sitting down like nothing's happened.
I mean, they obviously should have gone out looking for her, but...
That was his actions showing her how much he cared.
Exactly. I mean, she is shown throughout the movie to be quite independent and resourceful, but that's still not an excuse to not go looking for your teenage daughter who's just stormed off.
Yeah. So you cannot blame her for feeling the way she does, and I like how that's set up, really.
Yeah, I mean, there is Brad-demption, I suppose you could call it, at the end.
Yeah, Brad-demption. Yeah, she goes to his wedding and everything is all nice, and they don't mention the window. It's like...
Yeah, well, no, that would be a bit of a dickish thing, like, oh, you broke my window.
No,
is this really the time?
I was thinking more of her just quietly going, sorry about the window, to the stepmother.
Yeah, I'm glad she didn't apologise. She got that free shot at them. She got that free shot.
No, she was entitled to that window rock, I think.
Exactly. Everybody gets one. I mean, also, I think that Bradley Whitford deserved to get kicked in the nuts for what he did to Billy Madison in this movie. That didn't happen. Yeah. So we still owe him one. Also, as an aside, I think this is the first time that Bradley Whitford has never been to a wedding that he hasn't sabotaged for his own self-interest.
Does he do that in films, or is that just something we imagine he would?
It's something we imagine he would on the basis that he's always the villain. I mean, you can imagine him trying to steal somebody's girlfriend by ruining the wedding and saying, hey, baby, why don't you come with me instead?
You should be with me, but I am with you. Oh, sorry, I'm not normally in this position.
We're getting married today. Oh, yeah. What? Oh, we haven't talked about the blonde one who I can't remember the name of.
Typecasting of Bradley Whitford aside.
Yeah,
the soccer camp.
The soccer camp plot, yes. I cannot remember the name of the girl.
The football camp, to give it its
football
true
girl.
name.
Yeah, the Bend It Like Beckham football California Baja girl.
Yeah.
See, we were paying attention. I'm trying to prove that we were paying attention, but are both appalling with names.
Yeah.
I did like the way that plot went.
That was a late bloomer for me, because it was just her chasing a guy, and then it's only after she gets it that I think that plot thread becomes interesting.
Exactly. I was wondering where they were going with that.
Yeah. And also, I want to bring up something that I think was quite well done here. They plant the seed initially when she's talking to him.
Yeah.
And she said she saw a shrink and said the words, single-minded to the point of recklessness. And I thought that was just a throwaway line at the time. But then after she gets it and she said, I didn't think I would, but I need my mum. That her mum's dead. Unless
they orphan her at the beginning of the movie. They do a Harry Potter.
That single-minded to the point of recklessness thing gives me the idea that she never actually properly dealt with her mum's death. And it was only then that it was really, well, if you don't deal with these problems, they will come out.
Absolutely.
Eventually.
Bottling it up never helps. But to preface this, we've both only seen this movie the once just now.
Yeah, that was just my first read on it.
Yeah, it could be that the movie didn't really do enough to establish the loss and the grief and that the mom dying was a big deal, because it is sort of shrugged off at the beginning. And I think it's deliberately shrugged off by that particular character who's trying to be in denial of it.
Well, she did run away from the funeral.
She did, that's right. I forgot about that.
So I think that is what was going on here, is that she once she lost sight of the goal she was chasing, she started thinking about her mom, and she'd never dealt with that.
She was then alone with her
The
thoughts.
single-minded to the point of recklessness thing is good characterization of her, like, just
Coping mechanism.
picking a goal and thinking of nothing else to avoid trying to think about her grief.
It's an unhealthy coping mechanism, and I think we can all relate to that to some extent. Because at first she was the least relatable character for me, because I'm not all brash and confident and sporty and all that, so I didn't really feel attached to that character at all at first. It was only when she opened up a bit and after she got the... I'm going to mention this now, because at first I thought it was meant to be funny, but there was a scene where she finally got with the guy who she was after for the whole movie, and then it cuts to a close-up of honey dripping into a pot.
Yeah,
I thought that was an unintentionally funny, like, sexual reference. And then a few minutes later it turns out that they did do the deed.
No, that wasn't intentional honey transition.
I was actually laughing at first because I thought it was an unintentional honey dripping thing.
Although, if we're talking about unintentional camera moves, can we talk about that old guy framed between the two in Greece for that split second?
That was about 2 minutes later in the movie.
Yeah.
Because there's the Greeks plot, which we'll talk about last, because we haven't got around to that one yet, where the girl and the guy do the whole Romeo and Juliet thing. They get together, and they kiss for the first time, but there's an old man sitting on a bench between them, juxtaposed perfectly, he is the focus of that scene, and I was wondering, who is this old guy?
Yeah, and I think the film was pretty well shot apart from that.
It was just an unintentional juxtaposition. I thought that character was meant to be important, and we never see him again, and we haven't seen him earlier in the movie, so I was very confused by that moment.
Yeah.
Who was he? I wonder what his life was. I actually had a theory that the day they were filming that scene, because the beginning of that scene was the honey pot scene, where she's dangling in the honey suggestively, and I thought that maybe the director was hungover that day and wasn't really concentrating on what was going on. But no, whenever there's something in this movie that you think doesn't make sense, it does come back later and it does make sense.
Yeah. I mean...
There's no red herrings.
Yeah. I think we wanted to watch this movie for two reasons. One, because it was recommended by a mutual friend, and the other because it was from a director that also did Dunstan Checks In. And it was the most successful film by that director. I can't currently remember the name of.
Kwapis is his last name. I'm not sure how it's pronounced, I don't want to get it wrong. Ken Kwapis.
Yeah.
I've put his name on the screen, just in case you know how to pronounce this monstrosity of a name.
Yeah. Okay. So, yeah.
But you can tell from Dunstan Checks In that he's talented, and he puts the effort in, and he knows what he's doing. So it's good to see a story where he can fully flesh out his skills as a director.
Yeah. I would say that this is a more competent film than... Well, I don't want to say competent, because there was nothing incompetent about Dunstan Checks In. It wasn't a technical failing, it just wasn't a great movie.
It was a better application of the man's skills.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to say.
Yeah, not that we're sniffy about monkey movies, because we've established we love some right dross from the 90s.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're slumming it, and this is our looking at a good piece of work that is, I say good, interesting piece of work he's put together.
How did it do with critics, by the way? What was the, budget, box office, critic consensus, those sort of things?
Well, we often use Rotten Tomatoes because it's an aggregate. We know that it's not the be-all and end-all of film criticism or even audience opinion, but it's a good litmus test, isn't it?
Yeah, if nothing else.
The tomato meter of critics says 77% score with them and 78% score with audiences.
Yeah, it's pretty even then between the two.
And they take the words out of my mouth with the critics' consensus. It reads, "The adaptation of a beloved novel charms with its heartwarming tale of friendship and young adulthood, realistic portrayals of the life of teenage girls, and the comedy drama sincerity, and may capture hearts outside the female-centric demographic.
It took a while for me to get on board, but I definitely was by the end.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't a really girly movie, if that makes sense. It's something that anyone can really appreciate, but at first I thought...
Well, it also wasn't not.
Yeah. It was realistic in that way.
Yeah.
It's the sort... I like these kinds of coming-of-age movies. I like any movies made by John Hughes. Pity in Prink... Prink? What the fuck am I on about?
Leave that in.
Pretty in Prink. I'm going to edit the poster.
Daniel.
Yeah, Pretty in Prink, which had Maury Ringwald. That was a good movie. I like that. I liked The Breakfast Club. That was another good one. Horror. Home Alone, I'm going to be serious now. And, of course, Ferris Bueller's Day Off. It had a similar feeling to those. There was enough to relate to.
Films like this really do live and die on the strength of their characters. Because what else is there for the audience to invest in?
Exactly. And all the characters are great in this movie, and all of the actors are great in this movie as well. Really good performances, I think.
Yeah. It's definitely well acted. I think it takes too long to get good, if I'm being honest. I wouldn't have sat all the way through this if I weren't professionally obligated to do so. Well,
and it's the same for me, and I'm kind of mad with myself for not being open-minded enough. Because I did actually think if we weren't doing this for the show, I'd probably switch it off, and that was about half an hour in. And having watched the full movie now, I'm really annoyed at myself for ever thinking that.
Yeah, same. I do actually feel exactly the same way there.
This movie has unintentionally taught me that I need to be more open-minded.
I mean, I always knew that about myself, but I also am not going to give up my free time for something I don't think I'm going to like.
Exactly. And there have been movies that I've stopped watching partway through just because they didn't really grab my interest, and maybe I should reevaluate some of those. But I think this is a hindsight movie. I think it's probably one that people who read the book might enjoy. I've never read the book, but it was based on a book. It could be for them a bit like what Holes was. And also, this is a film that you'd probably appreciate more on a rewatch. Like, if I rewatched this later, I'd probably notice stuff in the first half that I didn't before. And I'd think, well, actually, that's quite good because that's foreshadowing what happens later. Because there's a lot of foreshadowing. Like, we were talking about the subplot where the girl who works at... Oh, I love this. It's called... Oh, what was it called?
Woolman's.
Woolman's! Because she said, oh, I've got this summer job at Woolman's, and I thought...
They mention Woolman's an ungodly amount of times.
They do. They milk the joke, because she said Woolman's, and I thought, wait, is that meant to be like Walmart? And, yeah, it was. You see the sign, and it's obviously Walmart, but it says Woolman's. I don't know if that's a jab because they tried to get permission to film at Walmart, because you see brands like FedEx later on in the movie.
Yeah.
So... It's like McDowell's in Coming to America.
Except in Coming to America, they do actually mention McDonald's, and it's part of the plot.
And Coming to America was more of a out-there comedy, whereas this was more of a comedy sort of drama. They don't lean into the joke quite that heavily, but they do say Woolman's an ungodly amount of time.
Yeah.
Anyway, the reason why I bring up the Woolman's thing is because there's one of the four girls... she's interested in film, but she's got this job to raise money to make her film.
Yeah.
And she meets this girl. She looks around the corner and then this girl just keels over and is lying on the floor. And I was really confused at first because I was like, what, is she dead? What's happening? Who is she? And then she picks her up. They have a weird exchange in the next scene where the little girl comes over to her house and she's rude to her for no reason. And I was thinking, what on earth's going on here? Why is she being so mean to the girl?
Right, what happened there was the girl came over to her house because the pants went to her instead because they have similar addresses. And then I can't remember her name. she gives her wallet back, which she accidentally took from her. Well, she took to find an ID, but the ambulance didn't take it with her. And then she accuses her of stealing money. And then they get into an argument, and then she just makes herself the assistant.
Which is really weird considering how rude she just was to her.
Although, I think the context that she is dying is... It goes some way to explain that she wouldn't behave...
Normally.
Well, not just that she wouldn't bother with being polite and not saying what she thinks.
Well, yeah, because life's literally too short, and...
Yeah.
Also, she probably doesn't know how to deal with what she's feeling at that particular time.
Yeah.
But that's quite interesting, because they do sort of develop a friendship, and they go out and film this documentary about the guy who plays Dragon's Quest, which again
Dragon's Lair.
Dragon's Lair, yeah. Is Dragon's Quest the one with, what one's Dragon's Quest?
You're thinking of Dragon Quest. It's a Japanese RPG series that is drawn by Akira Toriyama, I believe.
Yes, I got the two mixed up because they're both made by legendary animators. Because you've got Akira Toriyama and you've got... Oh, what's the name of the guy who does Dragon's Lair?
I don't know. We've never known that.
No, yeah, we have. And Dragon's Lair was animated by Don Bluth, who animated a load of movies from the 80s and 90s, including the Land Before Time movies. He's got a very distinctive art style. You can recognise it anywhere.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Cool.
So both made by legendary artists. You can see the confusion, can't you? But anyway, forgetting that little segue. No, we were talking about the girl. Because, yeah, they have this friendship for half an hour of the movie. And you sort of forget that when they met, she keeled over for no reason.
Yeah.
And then she comes back and says, "Oh, I've got leukemia." No, it's found out she has leukemia because the neighbours of the little girl, yeah.
She goes to her house and she's not there.
That's
and the
right.
neighbours tell.
And then she says, "I've got leukemia." And I thought, that makes sense. That explains why she keeled over earlier. Because you do forget all about that. I think it's intentional. So, yeah, we're still on the first question. I think we've established we both did enjoy this movie. So I'm going to ask...
even if it took a while to get through the wall.
It was a slow burner. If you're in the same situation as us and you haven't seen this movie, give it a chance, because it's a slow burner, but it gets really good about 40 minutes in, maybe. I say 30...
To an hour.
Yeah, I say 30 minutes, Ollie says an hour, so the aggregate is 45 minutes. Give it a chance. Question 2. How well did the film achieve its goals, and what were they?
Did it make more money than it cost to produce? That's always the first goal of a film.
Yeah, it did, Ollie. I was just looking at the page for Dragon's Lair there. I nearly gave you the wrong information. It had a budget of 25 million and made 42 million, so it was a cheap movie to produce. I suppose the most expensive part of it was the on-location scenes in Greece.
Yeah.
Because they did film the Greek scenes in Greece, which is good. And I think they had one scene in Mexico at the beginning.
And it was in 2005, so it wasn't that long ago. You wouldn't really have to adjust for inflation.
Not to any meaningful degree. But it cost 25 million to make. 42 million was made. So they made money on this. Not a huge amount, but...
No, it seems to be a sensibly budgeted film that found its appropriate audience and did well with it. So yeah, it accomplished that goal. And as an adaptation of a novel that I haven't read, I can't speak to how good an adaptation it was.
They did a good story.
But it was a perfectly serviceable film.
Yeah.
So I think it told the story it was trying to tell.
Well, the novel was best-selling. I don't actually know what the word best-selling means.
It means it sold quite well, I should imagine.
But what is it better than? Like, I don't know, do you have a worse-selling novel that only sold like 12 copies, or...
I do.
Well, yeah. Okay,
No.
And do you know what? The Sisterhood of the Travelling Pants was written by Anne Brashares. I think I'm pronouncing that correctly. And it was a very successful young adult novel series because there were 2 sequels, four sequels to this book, which I assume is what the sequels movies are telling the story, perhaps.
I mean, unless they go the route of Psycho and Psycho 2, where they just do completely their own thing.
Just ignore the source material. Yeah, in this one, Carmen goes into space in the second one. And there's an orangutan again, because, Ken Kwapis can't stay away. But this book did quite well, considering it was launched on, and I'm not making this as a joke, I'm saying this was the day it was launched, September the 11th, 2001. So considering that it would have hardly grabbed people's attention on that particular day when it came out, it's done quite well for itself.
Yeah, I would say so.
The thing is, whenever I bring up September the 11th seriously, I feel like people might misinterpret it as a joke, and no, that's really when the book came out.
Yeah. I don't really know what to say there.
Yeah, it was a 9/11 book. Sorry. Okay, let's go back to talking about the plot. That seems like a safe place to
Well, we don't have to recount the plot.
No. The film did achieve its goals, in my opinion, because it made profit. It also has a bit of a cult following, so I assume it's done quite well on the secondary market.
It was a competently made movie. I enjoyed it, and it doesn't strike me as having done anything unintentionally, if that makes any sense at all.
Yeah. It's a movie that I intend to rewatch, because I do think there's a lot I missed out. I think it's a nice story. I might watch the sequels out of curiosity, although, again, I don't know if it really needed a sequel. But since there were sequel books...
No, it was a pretty complete story, I think. I think it did accomplish its goals, in every sense.
Yeah, I liked it. I liked it more than because I went into this thinking I would like it, because I like coming-of-age stories. I've already established that. And we had a mutual friend who recommended it to us, and he's usually on the money about most things. So I thought, yeah. And then I was a bit disappointed when the first 30 minutes happened and it wasn't particularly interesting, or...
It wasn't gripping me.
It wasn't gripping me either. But maybe it's just because it's a hot day here, I don't know. We were looking at this movie critically going in, and usually we review movies that we've already seen and are quite familiar with and like. So, perhaps we were just a tough crowd today, I don't know.
Well, no, I tried to let it take me in, I just wasn't really feeling it for the first hour or so.
Yeah, we got into it, so it achieved its goals quite well. Ollie, did the film exceed your expectations?
It did, yeah. And those expectations were set by that first hour or so.
Yes, it was pretty much what I expected it to be going in. When I started watching it, I had low expectations, and it ends up being a lot better than I thought it would be. Yeah.
Same. I don't think there's much more to say there.
Exactly, and we're probably not the target audience that we're, grown-ass men.
We're definitely not the target
audience. Yeah, we're grown-ass men, we're not teenage girls, but there are girly movies I like Mean Girls, for example.
I've not seen that.
That's one we could do, Ollie. And I don't know if you could count 10 things I hate about you in that category, because at the end of the day, it's Shakespeare.
I have seen that. That was shown in English.
I quite like that
I saw a lot of movies in English class, apparently.
Yeah, I like how you watch more movies than you read books.
Well, we read books as well. We read Holes and then immediately watched the film.
Yeah, I like doing that, I must admit.
And of Mice and Men as well, that was one.
Yeah, that's another classic. That's a Steinbeck classic.
Yeah.
Okay, Ollie, is there an element in this film that particularly appeals?
Not in the marketing or in the premise, I've got to say. I think it's a really good character piece, and I love good character pieces.
Yeah, I like good character pieces as well, and it did the characterisation of each character quite well. It was very well sewn together, and I'm not making a pun, no pun intended, because it's about a pair of jeans.
Yeah.
Ollie, did you only just get that?
Well, yeah.
Sewn together jeans. I wasn't making that pun intentionally, but I realised after I said it.
Right.
Also, a tiny thing that I appreciate, I like that there's a character called Brian McBrien.
Yeah, that was fun.
Yeah. Although I do wonder if that was a false name he gave, or a pseudonym.
There was also Game Boy Advance SP product placement, but they didn't dwell on it. It wasn't blatant.
Yeah, it wasn't too obvious. I mean, there was also technically FedEx product placement, but again, it didn't dwell on that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a nice version of what it was supposed to be. characters. I like how towards the end all the characters do start coming back together, because the movie does a good job of giving you a feel of the girls' relationships with each other, both individually and all together, without them being on screen together an awful lot, because through most of the movie they're separate doing their own things.
Which is a big deal because they've never been separate before, is set out in the beginning.
Exactly, like we see 5 minutes of them being together and just being teenage girls and having a laugh and all that, and breaking into the building where their parents met doing yoga, which was a little bit weird, but I'll give it a pass. And the only interaction they have for more than half of the movie is the occasional narrated letter to each other. And maybe 1 or 2 phone calls, I don't know. They don't really phone call very often.
Yeah, it kind of jumps between their stories, and to be honest, in the first half, I always started wishing it would get back to the interesting one.
Yeah, because the interesting one was the filmmaker girl who makes friends with the cancer girl and make a movie together. But that's the one that was interesting all the way through. All the others get a lot more interesting as they go on.
Yeah. I mean, with the possible exception of the Grease subplot, you know where that's going, immediately.
Yeah, it's...
I did like that her grandpa never speaks.
Yes, because I thought he was just a regular guy at the beginning, because the first scene you see in Grease of the Greek girl, who I can't remember the name of, Tibby is the name of the one who's making the film. Is it Lena who's the one in...
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, it must be through process of elimination, because I know that Bridget is the blonde one, because I don't think there's a single person called Bridget in the world who isn't blonde.
I don't know of one.
No, I've never met anyone called Bridget who's a brunette. You never see Bridget the brunette. Carmen is the Puerto Rican girl. I like her a lot. But the one we were talking about, the Greek one, the first you see of her in Greece is being very uncomfortable on the donkey and not really being able to sit properly. And she's being led from her granddad on another donkey. And I didn't realise that was her granddad at first. I thought that was just a normal donkey man.
Donkey man.
But I did like how the first scene in Greece, she's on the donkey, she's not comfortable in her own skin, she can't really sit down properly. And in the last scene in Greece, it all comes together. She's being led by her grandpa again, and this time she's sitting on the donkey, she's competent on the donkey, and she's comfortable on the donkey.
Yep.
And I like that, because I just like the mirror imagery and the callbacks. And this movie does callbacks very well. If something happens in the beginning of the movie, and you think that's a little bit weird, it does come back later. There's no red herrings.
Yeah.
So I feel like it's quite a concise movie. I mean, maybe the book it was based on was short, but it doesn't feel like...
What was it you said it came back about?
What came back?
No, I remember we were watching the film and you said it came back, as in a plot thread, and it's like...
I'm just trying to think.
Oh, wait, the Dragon's Lair thing when
yes, that
Brian
came back.
drops off the Game Boy.
Yeah. There was one bit of cinematography I didn't like.
I do like the scene earlier, the Dragon's Lair scene, where Timmy's obviously dismissive of this because she's dismissive of everything.
Yes.
And then all 3 of them get really into watching this guy play Dragon's Lair.
I did like that because that was done in sort of a comedic timing way where they're like, oh, look at this loser, he's playing his Dragon's Lair. And then the next bit you see is the 3 of them really invested in what's happening in the game. And I liked that.
Yeah, I mean, it was charming.
It was. And this movie was quite charming the more it went on. But the granddad didn't speak until an hour and 20 minutes in. And you're right in saying that was the most predictable plot. You know, she finds the handsome Greek guy, they fall in love, it's a Romeo and Juliet situation because the grandparents fell out. And we never find out what they fell out over, and I think that's brilliant because it shouldn't be justified. You know, especially after all these years.
Well, he does. The guy says what they fell out over.
It was just money and fish, wasn't it?
Yeah.
But we never know the specifics. It could be like The Great Divide, where they fell out over something really trivial, perhaps. Another element in the film that does appeal to me for the most part is the cinematography, because it's as good as it needs to be. It shows us what it needs to. The one bit I didn't really like was the beginning where they're making the pact about the magical the magical travelling pants. and the camera's on a spinny thing all around them, going very quickly. I get what they were going for, but I think the camera was moving twice as quick as it needed to.
It was kind of gratuitous, wasn't it?
It was gratuitous and it was disorientating, which wasn't good considering we were struggling to get into the movie at that time. It felt a bit alienating. I know they were trying to be artistic and stylistic about it because this is the big moment, the inciting scene where they make the pact of the travelling pants where they agree to share the pants, rather, and send them to each other when they needed them. No, it wasn't when they needed them, it was every week or so. That must have cost them a load in shipping.
Yeah, I don't think we're supposed to think about that.
Especially internationally, because they were sending it to Greece. It probably doesn't cost that much to send stuff to other parts of America, but it probably costs a lot to send jeans to Greece and then send them back from Greece to the US again. That's probably expensive.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think they thought about the logistical aspects of these magical jeans when they were writing this.
Yeah, this is true.
People rarely do, to be honest with you, Ollie.
Yeah.
But they did that twice. They did it again at the end around the pagoda at the wedding when they're basically just summing up the movie and their friendships. So they're obviously making that their thing. I just wish they did it slower because it's not a bad effect. It's good because you get to see each of their faces for a bit and their interactions. It shows that off well. They just did it way too quick, and they did actually manage to... here's an interesting thing I remember when I was doing media studies on it.
Yeah.
When they do a shot like that, a dolly shot where it goes around them, they have to edit out at one point the shadow of the dolly because there will always be the shadow visible at one point if they're filming that.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So they did have to digitally edit that out, and assumably they'd have had to have done it again the second time.
Right, is there anything else?
I don't know, is there anything in this film that particularly appealed to you, Ollie?
I don't know, I like the way the characters are written, that's basically it, which, considering that's the point of the film, it's a pretty good mark.
Yeah, I liked it. Okay, question 5. How does the film hold up today?
Well, I feel like I say this a lot, but I think it holds up as well today as when it was released, because it's not really got anything in it that would age out particularly.
Yeah, it holds up very well. It's much like Holes in that regard, other than the fact that it doesn't have any CGI at all. Yeah. Which is good.
You mentioned holes in the CGI and that being the example of aging badly in the last video.
Yeah, it just sticks out to me. I can't get over how ugly those lizards look, and not like they're meant to look ugly, just they do.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I suppose if you're being extremely nitpicky, you could say the whole Natasha Bedingfield soundtrack with Katy Perry and stuff.
Yeah. Nothing ages faster than contemporary references.
Yeah, none of that music is bad music. It's nothing offensive. It's not anything that you can listen to and think, oh, that's rubbish. It's just background music. They have the whole "Feel the Rain on Your Skin" song, and it was bad. It was overplayed in adverts. Beyond that, it's okay.
Well, no, I wouldn't suppose there's anything that particularly appeals to me about the film, but the appeal is in having watched it, which means I probably never would have if I wasn't going to do so for this, so I'm glad I did.
Yeah, and the film held up well, I'd say.
Yeah, I would say so too.
So the final question is, was the film received appropriately at the time?
Well, we've kind of covered that, yeah.
Yeah, it was. Hopefully fans of the book liked it. I liked it. I like that Ken Kwapis finally got his successful movie.
Yeah.
Because he deserves it. Although apparently he did make Noah.
That was Darren Aronofsky.
Oh no, it's a different movie called Noah. Okay, this Noah stars Tony Danza and is a movie about a jaded contractor who undergoes a remarkable transformation while building an ark like Noah's. Yeah, it's not the big budget one starring Russell Crowe and Jennifer Connelly.
Right.
That's not the one that Ken Kwapis made. Not to say he couldn't, but...
I haven't actually seen either of them, so...
It's embarrassing when you get your Noahs mixed up.
Yeah.
I do think it's funny when they make these big biblical movies like Passion of the Christ and Noah, and they don't expect it to generate controversy somehow. It's like, why don't people like our fictional depiction of their religious figures?
I don't know. I don't really watch movies like that.
No, neither do I. It doesn't interest me at all.
Although Noah did look good. I remember Noah looking good in the trailers, and I was going to go and see it and just missed it.
Yeah, you're a big fan of The Crow, man, aren't you?
Not particularly. I mean, I
Oh, you mean the movie rather than Noah specifically? I could just imagine going into Ollie's room and seeing loads of pictures of Russell Crowe plastered on the walls.
Okay, I'm not sure what you're getting at the moment.
I don't know. When you said Noah, I thought you meant, oh, Noah looks good. I didn't realise you meant the movie.
Of course I meant the movie.
I don't know.
Anyone else would have.
Sorry. Yes, because I thought you said he looks good rather than it looks good.
I said Noah looked good in the trailers.
Sorry. I like how they do the tropes. They do the wedding crash trope. They do the sexual suggestion trope, which I wasn't expecting at all. That caught me off guard. And this movie, sorry, I keep thinking of things I like about this movie that I should have said half an hour ago, but I like how this movie does non-verbal dialogue well.
Yeah, there's a lot of non-verbal communication.
Yeah, it's like the scene where Carmen and Tibby, where Carmen and Tibby are...
She slides the phone across the table.
Yeah, as if to say, just do it, I'm with you. And they didn't need to say one word of dialogue between each other. That is how you do a movie well. You show, you don't tell.
Yeah.
And you'd expect somebody who does slapstick comedy well in a previous movie for those skills to carry over to that. And it does.
Well, it's not really the same skill, but I get what you mean.
Yeah, well, the slapstick comedy is non-verbal comedy, isn't it?
Yeah.
So it translates well into non-verbal storytelling.
Uh-huh.
That's what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
And the Greek scenes look nice. It was sort of like a proto-Mamma Mia. Except no James Bond singing this time.
And what a mercy that was.
Yeah, I don't know, I liked it. I thought it was just hilarious that James Bond could do a musical.
He can't. But they did anyway.
It's the attempt that's made me laugh. It's the attempt, Ollie.
Yeah.
Okay, it's time to sum this mother up. What did you think of the Sisterhood of the Travelling Pants, Ollie? What's your parting words for our listening audience on this movie?
Yeah, it was pretty good. For what it took a while for me to get into it. I eventually did. It was an okay movie.
It won us over.
I don't know if I'd watch it again. I wouldn't not watch it again. I wouldn't avoid watching it again. But I don't know if I'm ever going to feel like watching it again, if that makes sense.
I'm going to contrast. I'm going to say I do feel like watching it again fairly soon just to get the full image, because I feel like because I wasn't 100% paying attention to the first half that there's good stuff in there that I did miss. And I like to feel like I've watched a movie, if that makes sense, when I watch a movie.
Well, yes, I imagine you would.
Because otherwise you're just filling up 2 hours looking at pictures on a screen. And that's not really what watching a movie is it? At the most superficial level it is, but you know what I'm saying. There's a story, there's all of that to appreciate.
Yeah. Well, let me know if you missed anything particularly good. I don't know if I'm going to be bothered doing that.
Who knows, if this channel takes off, we might do some retrospectives one day.
Maybe.
This isn't a promise, by the way, annoying person who in the comments.
Yeah, Pete.
Okay. Thank you for joining us for Film de Siècle. I hope that you enjoyed our take on Sisterhood of the Travelling Pants.
Yes, I hope you did. You're not the annoying one in the comments, Pete. I just grabbed the first name I thought would probably be there.
No, that's you, Josh.
We like you. We like Pete.
We don't like Josh, though. You're an arsehole.
Who's Josh?
I don't know. Okay, alright, I will see you. Well, I won't see you at all. This is an audio show. You will hear us next week for Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets.
Oh, yes. We will see you then.
Yes. Bye.
Bye.